Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Tales from the Dark. I'll be your host, Shinku, and tonight we're gonna go through 3 first-hand encounters with unknown creatures. And with that being said,
let's get into it. Number 1.
my strange story took place on the 26th of September 2009. My church was on a retreat in Indiana, in a forest. The place we stayed at was a small building in the center of the forest. So that evening, we decided to go out and play in the forest with the children. So we came up with a game to play. It was like police. The children were the police, and we would pick an adult to be the hostage. So when we began the game, we had to find the adult hiding in the forest in the middle of the night. So we started going around the back of the building, and we spotted a tall figure. It had to be at least 6 feet tall. It was running towards the trees, where there was a small open area with tall grass that goes up to your knees. It ran with its arms at its sides, but it stopped at the edge of the tall grass, as if to wait for us to get closer. We chased after it, thinking it was an adult. When we were finally a few yards away, it dove into the grass and started to crawl very fast, almost like a snake. We got weirded out, but stood there staring at it. When it got across the tall grass, it began to climb a tree. It looked somewhat like a deformed cat-like animal when it was climbing. Then, a few moments later, a kid yelled,
"He's over there!"
and was pointing in an opposite direction. We saw a similar figure running a couple of yards away, so we chased it, but then it vanished behind a tree. Turns out, a few minutes later, we found the adult hiding in the parking lot in front of the building the whole time. So who knows what we saw that night in that forest? At least 15 kids saw that thing with me. So I know I'm not crazy.
Number 2.
I used to work at a cheese factory on the edge of a cornfield in southwestern Minnesota. There were a series of days in the summer of maybe '04 or '05 where it was so hot that the milk being delivered to us in trucks would evaporate before we got it. It made work easy. The death of milk denied us any actual labor, but management wouldn't let us not come to work, so we would show up and mess around all shift. I was working nights at the time. It was around 2 or 3 a.m., and I was out on the loading dock watching bats fly around the floodlights because I liked being out in the cool night air. The corn was about as high as my shoulder, so about 5 foot 10 inches. As I was watching the bats, I looked down at the edge of the cornfield. Something was moving there. It was the size of a small child, and very, very skinny. Somewhat pale, with something that looked like a head of straight black hair. It moved in sort of a jerky gait, like someone dancing the robot badly. It moved in chunks, legs, then hips, then torso, shoulders, neck, and finally head. It was looking back into the cornfield, or at least I felt like it was. I felt prickly all over. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a heron or something at first, but it looked too much like a person. It didn't move like a person though. Gradually, step by step, it was moving towards me. Letting my curiosity better my fear, I moved towards the edge of the dock, which was raised a few feet off the ground. When I got within a few feet of the edge, it looked at me. I was paralyzed. I could have ran, but I was stuck somewhere between terrified and intrigued. It moved, its face still pointed at me. It ratcheted its body in that disconcerting, jerky movement towards the cornfield and went into it. I tried to watch where the field moved as it passed, but the corn remained perfectly still. I noticed that all the crickets were silent. After a few minutes, nothing happened. I stood there for an hour, but it never came back. I never saw it again.
Number 3.
This story was told to me from a friend of a friend. This is kind of a long story, but the creepiest thing happened to me, and I really need to tell this story while the details are still fresh in my mind. Although I'm pretty certain I'll never forget it, for some reason, I feel like this is important and I need to share it. So, last night I went to Chesapeake, Ohio, to a friend's house to play music and sing. We jammed until around 3 a.m. When we left, we headed towards Proctorville, Ohio, to take the bridge into Huntington, West Virginia. That stretch of road alongside the river is dark, and there aren't many streetlights. That night, it was dark and also cold. We were talking and trying to get the heat going when all of a sudden, a tall, dark figure appeared seemingly out of nowhere on the side of the road, literally right beside the door, the passenger door, my door. We were going around 50 to 60 miles an hour, and this thing did not flinch. I felt it, though. There's really no other way to explain it. It was so close to my door that I felt it. And what I felt was all wrong. It was sinister and did not come from a place of good. It looked like it was about 7 to 8 feet tall. Now, we were in a pickup truck, a Dodge Ram, I believe, and it was so tall that my friend that was driving said, "Maybe that was a roadwork sign with a black tarp draped over it or something." It was taller than the truck. It looked shrouded, almost like it had wings, but they were wrapped around its body. It appeared out of nowhere, and it seemed like it leaned towards the truck as we passed by it. So close that I felt it, like in my soul and in my skin. So close that if my window had been down, I could have reached out and touched it, or it could have reached in. It made me actually shiver as we drove by it. Now, I'm an empath, and I am telling you, this thing sent everything it had, and it had nothing but darkness to send. I've never felt anything that creepy before, like to my very core. We were both shaken by it, and I still am. My friend wanted to go turn around to see what it was, but I did not. Fast forward a little bit, we get to the bridge and, of course, it's closed. So we end up having to turn around and go back towards Chesapeake, which meant we had to go back through that very same stretch of road again. And right as we are getting ready to pass another car, that thing comes out from behind the car and looked like it was floating and gliding across the road. It was crouched down, almost like it was getting ready to pounce or take off. It was then I could see the top of its head. It was shiny and black. My friend said, maybe it was a person on a skateboard because of the way that it was gliding and moving in the middle of the road. Then proceeded to say, that was some straight up Jeepers Creepers shit. Look, all I know is this. This wasn't a 7-foot person dressed in all black at 3 in the morning. This was not human. It was pure evil, and I hope that I never experience it again. Stay safe, my friends.
Hey everyone, a big mahalo for sticking with me to the end. I really enjoyed this video, and I want to do more. So if you enjoyed the content as well, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and turn on your notification bell, because I'll be trying to post as much as I can with my limited resources. Anyways, just let me know what else you'd like to hear in the comment box, or even my email or my Instagram that I'll be leaving in the description box as well. You folks have a good one, and remember to always
Stay safe.